All right, good evening, everybody. This is our monthly 7-month, I think we're down to 7 months.
Thereabouts. Yeah.
7 months, we have Monday monthly meetings, normally the third Monday, but if there's a President's Day or Martin Luther King Day, sometimes it's changed to the fourth Monday. Anyway, tonight we have a very special meeting, but before we get going, do we have any new people who have never been here before? And what are your names, please?
Marty and Karen.
And how'd you hear about us?
Well, a friend of mine who's a member here told me that the meeting was tonight.
Is he wearing a tie?
Somebody by the name of George.
Okay, and over here?
I'm new.
And what is your name, please?
My name is Judy, and I have a friend that plays bridge on occasion. And I asked if I was too stupid to come to the meeting, did I have to know anything? And he said, absolutely not. So I'm here.
No, nobody's
And
too
he's wearing
stupid.
a tie.
Anybody else new? Okay. Jerry, our president's with us tonight, Jerry King. Don's not with us. Georgia Mosier is our secretary. I'm
And
the
I
vice
have
president.
applications for membership or renewal if anybody wants them, because we've lost our table.
Yeah, so George will take your checks if you want to, any new people that might want to join the club. Anyway, tonight we have Dennis DiGiacomo, and Dennis is a local guy, and he spoke to us many times over the years. He's been a friend of the group for how long?
A long time. I don't know. So probably what, just a little after you started, right? When did you guys start?
Probably.
Probably when you came down there.
Probably. Yeah, it's been a long time.
How
I've
many
been
years?
here since 2000. So
So it's been at
You
least
took care of
13
me in the
years.
late 90s. so-
maybe 99.
As long as I've been here, Dennis has been here, and before that, so it's at least 12, 13 years. Anyway, Dennis is available for all and every computer needs you might have as far as Mac and PC. There's Don, by the way. Don's the guy you'll give the checks to. Don has arrived. Anyway, Dennis, why don't you talk a few minutes about yourself and what you do, and then...
Well, my name is Dennis DiGiacomo, as George introduced you. I'm your local Apple Pro. I've been with Apple Computer working kind of with them and alongside them now for about 20 years. And I'm actually a retired medic firefighter, did that for a long time as well, but those jobs you don't make enough money, so you have to do something else. And I've always done computers. And I've been actively working on Apple since System 6, which is a long time ago. Jerry would know those computers, they were way back when. But I also did everything from Windows 95 up as well. How many people here have actually used a Windows-based computer? Okay. Do you still have your computers?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, welcome to the right side, because the dark side's not that good. And if you haven't seen Windows 8 yet, it's not that pretty, so it's a pain to use. But I can do anything you guys need, everything from basic instruction all the way to, wiring your whole house if need be, so we can do anything to get asked. If you have questions, feel free to call me and ask me anytime. I'm actually pretty friendly, believe it or not.
How about a phone number?
What's that?
Phone number?
Yep, I will give you that at the end. I got cards as well.
Yeah, he'll give cards out.
Today we're going to talk about keeping your Mac healthy, as well as a little bit of some iPad tips to keep the iPad running smoothly as well.
You want to take questions during or after?
Let's hold them to the end if we can, because this won't take long to get through some of the stuff. The outline looks like there's a lot of stuff here, but when I go through it, it's not a whole lot of information. A lot of it are things most you already know. Some are just kind of recap. Others are just going to hit a few points that maybe you haven't figured out. As we go through it, we're talking about minimizing your experience and what that means with the computer itself. Talking about monitoring, of course, your hard drive RAM usage, sticking to one kind of background. I'm sure everyone's going, what does that mean? Using Apple supplied drivers if possible, and talking about whether or not you should do your software updates and when. And then regular maintenance, what really we need to do or not do with the Apple. Talking a little bit about the security threats nowadays and the Mac. Backup, and then the iPad tips and questions. Most people, because of the old days, we all had to fix our computers. We all needed to have some kind of Norton utilities. If you had Windows-based computers, you got some kind of registry repair program or some kind of fix or defrag. Well, Apple doesn't really need to have all that, but a lot of folks feel that it's that extra comfort zone of installing things on their computer to monitor things. Well, you know, that could be a firewall, that could be an extra security system. People want to say, hey, I'm going to turn on Activity Monitor, which is built in Apple, just to see how much RAM they're using the whole day while they're using their computer. But with these things running, they also take away from the computer's actual power for normal usage, whether you're checking email, writing a lecture on Keynote, and it takes away from that. One of the things people don't get is if you look at the top menu bar near the date and time on this side, I circled a couple things up there. These are about having a lot of background tasks. Everybody thinks, well, I have my computer turned on, the only thing opens mail. That's all it's open. Well, that's not true. Up top, you have Dropbox with a green check mark, which means that's talking to the cloud in the background. There's Evernote that's up there, that's talking and syncing. You have Sophos, which is that grayed out shield. It's kind of hard to see. That's kind of like an antivirus. This isn't my computer, but I'm just giving you ideas. Those are all the things up top there that are running in the background. So even though you're just staring at a screen, these things are going on behind the scenes. That's using a little bit of processor. It's also using RAM memory as well. That comes into play later. Plus, the whole goal is try not to have redundant things. It's kind of like having a Carbonite backup, which runs online, and then Mozy's another online backup service, and Box.com. It's okay to do backups, which I'm going to talk about. But when you have 3 things doing the same service, then they can compete with each other and cause problems with your system later, especially in slowdowns. You should always monitor our RAM and hard drive usage. How many people have their hard drives almost completely full?
What does that mean, Dennis? What do you consider almost completely full?
You have 10% of your whole storage space left. So if you have a 100 gig drive, you have 10 gigs left, you better start looking for an alternative. Either offloading some stuff off the computer, considering a bigger hard drive, depending on how old your computer is and what type of hard drive. And the RAM usage, right now, all the new computers come with plenty of memory on board. They're at least at 8 gigs or 16, depending upon which model you buy. Plenty of memory to do today's stuff. Older computers, because Apple, one thing nice about their hardware, it lasts a long time. I mean, we're looking, most average people get good 5 years out of their product to 7 years. I left one of the NMUG members in Marco today, and she's got 2 machines that are 7 years old each. One's only got a gig of RAM on it, and she can't figure out why it's going so slow. Well, she put Lion on it. Well, Lion uses just that much memory just to turn on. So it's fighting itself to juggle memory to check mail and stay on and not crash and then do Word. So having more memory on the computer is important, plus also not filling up the hard drive. One of the biggest things people forget to do is they put stuff in the trash can, they never empty the trash. You have to, it's like if you're in your house and you're making dinner and you got the chicken and you take the parts and you throw it in the garbage can, eventually it's got to go out to the big bin and then it has to go to the street so it actually physically goes away. And it's the same thing with the computer. If it's in the trash, it's not deleted and the computer holds on to that, so you got to delete the stuff. The other thing too is our downloads folder. Every time we download something, whether you're getting documents off the email, whether you're updating new apps, all that stuff sits in the downloads folder and we forget about it. And that does take up a lot of space. Okay, let's see. I know it's hard to read. I'm going to give Jerry a PDF of this stuff. One of the biggest things is, most people don't realize how much they have on their computers. Oftentimes, we have a video camera, you'll download a movie, which was somebody's wedding, and then forget that you did it, and it's in a folder somewhere. Then you end up downloading it again because you videotaped some soccer game to go with it. So now you have this folder, I'll address it later again. Videos in this folder, you have videos in this folder, and eventually you have 2 distinct video here, and they take up space. Making sure that we have free space on a hard drive is important, as well as how much free memory is left. If you only got a gig of RAM on your computer, then it's not enough to actually have Word open, Safari open, and Microsoft Excel. Anything that's open like that is going to just take away from the computer's overall performance. One of the big things I made a mention at the bottom, some people like to take their dock and hide it That's the bottom part of your screen that has all the icons on it. People hide it so you actually have more screen real estate. And since Apple's gone down to these 13-inch laptops, I mean, which is kind of small, we need all the space we can get to utilize it. Well, there's a little, it's hard to see for some of you, but it's a little blue dot that sits in front of each open application. That means it's running. Well, if the thing's hidden, you don't know if Word, unless you go down and look at it, you don't know if you left Word on, your mail running, Safari, and over time, these things do, take away from the computer. Newer machines, not so much, but most of us have older devices, so it does be a factor. Things you can do, Apple's got a couple tools, real simple. The activity monitor, which I'm sure you guys have talked about many times in the MUG group, and you can see how much usage is being there. And if you look at the pie chart to the right, the green stuff is all the extra space, and that's 16 gigs of RAM, and you can see what's being utilized and what isn't. But it breaks it down right there. And obviously that computer has plenty of memory, so it's not going to lose anything anytime soon. But when I was at today, I mean, there was the green space was only 10 megabytes left of memory, so it wasn't a whole lot. Also hidden, there's a bar here called a status bar, and you can unhide that from Apple. What it does is it tells you how many items are in each window you open. It also tells you the overall size, how much space is left on the hard drive, which is good to know.
Are you gonna go through and show them how to set that up?
I can do it after on a live thing. Just remind me. Stick to one kind of background service. Like, some people feel like, hey, I need to have, they're scared, they're PC people.
Can I just ask you a question about the slide before? Did I see in the lower right corner the old activity monitor?
Yes.
So that was an old slide?
That's an old slide, yeah.
I was just wondering whether you have found a way in Mavericks to display that? No?
No, not yet.
Okay, just a question.
No,
Smarty pants.
Apple's changed a lot of things.
We all did.
Well, yeah, they have, and I'm still mad about a few things Apple's done. I mean, I actually was on a beta team to test out Maverick. We sent our replies in. The Golden Master wasn't to be the Golden Master, and it was. So it's kind of like, well, gee, thanks, what'd you ask us for? So in Pages, I'm still messed up with that thing.
Yeah.
Background services, oftentimes we have Dropbox running, which you guys are familiar with. There's Google Drive. I don't know how many use Google Drive. There's other syncing services, Evernote, Box.com. These things all run, and they all have their own routines. Time Machine runs, behind the scenes. Carbonite runs behind the scenes. Sometimes they kick in at the same time. But try not to have duplicate services. Some people say, hey, I'm a Windows person. I know Apple doesn't have any bugs yet, but I really feel like I got to put something on there. So they end up putting Symantec or Sophos antivirus on there. Then they go, you know what? I saw EVG's got a free malware tool. It's kind of the same thing, but attacks different bugs. They put that on there. So these things, they kind of can collide with each other. And most people don't know that, hey, maybe I shouldn't have these two on there. Here's my thing. If you don't need it, okay, or don't think you're going to use it, don't install it. Less you put on the computer is actually better. Oftentimes you're going to hear people talk about different things. We all have different needs. I'm a little bit more of a heavy user of the computer, but that's my job. Other folks in here may be just doing simple things. Checking email, printing out boarding passes, surfing the web for certain things, doing some minor research. A lot of people do, what do you call that? Genealogy, where you're looking up backgrounds of your family. So, and some people do more, others do graphics, and it's just when you have too much crap on the computer, eventually it gets to be a problem. So if you don't think you need it, don't put it in there. I have people want to install extra firewalls because they feel safe or try to hide behind something for security reasons, and I'll explain to you that's not a good thing. One firewall is all you need. Apple comes shipped, it's not even turned on. So if you want to turn it on, you can. I don't turn mine on, it's not needed just yet. Apple's still pretty strong as far as their basic security settings are concerned. Believe it or not. Apple supply drivers. All that means is you guys have installed Maverick, some of you installed Mount Lion. Let's just say an Epson printer sitting over there. You plug it in, all of a sudden, it already installs the drivers. Or when you go to add the printer, it says installing from the web. It calls Apple's software update. It goes and gets the drivers. What happens nowadays between Microsoft and Apple, it all started because of, actually it's a good thing, but it's a result of what happened with Microsoft. When Microsoft brought Vista out, they spent 2 years in-house working on this project. They had every manufacturer, HP, Canon, Epson, Lexmark, Samsung, Sony, everybody you can think of, working on all the different devices that would go into their computer. When Vista first launched, it actually was decent for the first 2 months. When Service Pack 1 came in, it broke all the work all the contractors did over 2 years, which meant the printers now didn't work, the scanners didn't work. They did a month ago, now they don't work. So because everybody got upset, HP now was forced to pay their employees to rewrite a driver because Microsoft had updated. They said that's way too many products, we're not going to do it. Canon jumped on the bandwagon, everybody else did. So Apple kind of got left holding the bag because Apple wasn't as big of dominance in the market as Microsoft was. So they said, hey, we're going to leave it up to you guys to start helping us write drivers. So if you want these things to work, we'll write some, you write some. So now we have conglomerate teams between most manufacturers and Apple and Microsoft. So what they do is, if it has an Apple supplied driver, use it. Oftentimes people will buy a printer, most likely. Don't use the CD that comes with it. Just set it off to the side, plug it in the computer, and then go to the system prefs and add the printer. It'll say, hey, downloading software from software update. Usually that's all you need, and it works just fine. Sometimes there are features built in on these devices that do not or cannot be used via pushing a button or something, and it's up to later down the road whether there's an update or not. Sometimes features are there, and after an update, they disappear. So, and I've had that happen several times as well. But stick with Apple's things. Otherwise, if not, definitely use a manufacturer. Always check their website for the latest stuff. If you buy a brand new printer, just remember, it might be brand new today, but that box was sitting in a warehouse for 6 months. The software is almost a year old. So remember, the stuff has to get created, distribution, before you get it, it's been sitting a while. So it's really rare to get something from the factory to your door. Go to their website, always check for new versions. Don't stop there, because every day, how many people keep doing Adobe updates? All of us. Flash, Reader, Adobe Air. It's constant because they get hacked all the time. That's why there's always an update. It's nonstop. So even after you have your printer in, there may be an update every so often. That's why when software update kicks in, oftentimes Apple will say, hey, here's an Epson update. You're like, oh, didn't know there was an update. Because you wouldn't. But at least Apple's being proactive in helping us keep our experience decent, which is kind of nice. Software updates. The big thing is, when do I update? Should I update? And a lot of times, I always say, I wait. I'm a waiter. Because there's nothing in an update I have to have immediately. Now, granted, I know a lot of you have had Gmail, Mavericks. There's been issues with mail issues, especially Georgia. She's still having problems. Major problems. But, it's one of those things. Usually, when they build something and they rush to fix or address one specific problem, oftentimes they fix that problem, but they break something else in the process. So I tend to just wait. I mean, if 10.9.2 comes out tomorrow, I'm going to wait 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I don't have to install it right away. No one here would have to. But just wait. Because all of a sudden, I always read the forums. I read Apple support just to see what people are saying. If it seems like a decent update or it's been out there a month, okay, then I'll go ahead and put it in. And it's happened more times than not that Apple put an update out, people grab it, install it, find that it got pulled 2 hours later because there was a glitch. Now these people are stuck with a messed up machine and may have to reinstall an operating system. So I always tell people, just wait. One thing nice about the computers, they're working. If you're able to do everything you need to do, other than maybe some problems you still have to work on like Gmail or something, then don't update. Just wait a little while. Things seem to be clear. Or ask people here at the MUG group. They're a great resource. Say, hey, Jerry, George, is it a good time to update to 10.9.2? And if they say, yeah, sounds good, then go for it. Regular maintenance. Your Apple does not need regular maintenance. You Windows people out there, I know it's kind of hard for you to hear because Windows is always broken. So we always have to try to fix it. So Apple's not that way. Apple, the way they built the system, they've designed it to basically run a certain set of instructions to fix itself every so often. And as long as what I do is I keep my computer on all the time. I never turn it off. My display will go to sleep, but the computer kind of works behind the scenes. And usually, depending upon the cycle, you really can't change it without some tinkering tools. But generally between the hours of 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., Apple runs certain protocols as long as the machine's running, and it clears out some things it needs to do, which is kind of nice. It polices itself. Most of the time, because a lot of us grew up with older computers, and both whether I used Apple or Windows, we're always fixing things. Had to fix things. We had to defrag a hard drive. We had to, make more room for a lot of different things, or you'd have to clear caches. You have to worry about registries if you had Windows. But honestly, there's nothing to really do with your Apple except run a disk utility every so often, and I'll explain about that in a little bit. Otherwise, unless you have a major problem, you can call the Apple Store, call me, ask somebody in the group before you go any further. Because oftentimes installing some of these tools that say they can actually help you can do more harm than good. Now, one of the exceptions that you can check all the time would be the hard drive, because our hard drive holds everything. So if your computer starts slowing down and you've checked everything, seems fine, and it's really dogging slow, go ahead and open up Disk Utility, check it, see how it's doing. There's other software out there that can cause issues. Muffy, you're in the room, right? Poor Muffy. This girl, she's got so much data. She's like me, but I think she's actually got more than me. Terabytes and terabytes of data. So we got her a Drobo device to store all her stuff, which was working great. Unbeknown to her, her APC battery backup was on the floor. Is it okay to tell a story? Yeah. Okay. A little late now, I know. But it was on the floor, and every so often during the night, it would do a power cycle check to see how the battery was doing. Well, the battery was bad. So it would boop, just cut off. So her whole system would go dead. She'd come in, start the computer up, and blah, 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 everything was fine. Well, eventually, after enough hard shutdowns, where basically you're yanking a cord, Drobo lost its brain, meaning that it lost its table contents and index. All the data was there, you just couldn't get to it. So that's called a dirty shutdown. And that's why people need to have a battery backup on their system, because just yanking the power can be, if it's in the middle of writing its own table of contents or its own hierarchy, it's toast. You can toast your computer just like that. That's why battery backup is important. And in Florida, we don't necessarily get a lot of surges, we get a lot of brownouts or under voltages. We get not enough energy coming into the house. Most battery backups aren't adequate. And it sounds silly, like, hey, I just bought an APC for $70, I should be good. That's not true. The device you want, whether you buy APC, Trip Lite, Furman, there's a whole bunch out there, CyberPower, make sure it has AVR, stands for Automatic Voltage Regulation. If that is in the device, you're going to be a lot safer than most, because it's able, if electricity gets too high, it steps it down. If it's too low, it steps it up, and of course the power disappears, it kicks in for however long the battery says it can work, depending upon your system. So it's important to have. Most people have the
local, the brands that you mentioned, do they have them?
Most do, but people, everyone's price oriented. They go, well, I can get two of those for $39 a piece, and I'm not going to spend $109 to $150 on a battery backup. But remember, these are your toys. Our whole life is in this box. Everything you and I do nowadays is in that stupid box. So we need to protect ourselves. A hard drive is one thing, get your data off, but you got to keep the computer healthy as well. And as much as a battery backup is a huge part of the whole thing you have in your house. Everybody should have one. Now, laptops do okay because they have their own internal battery supply, so it's not a big deal if I yank the power off on that thing. But if this was an iMac, I'd be in trouble. Usually the basic simple things are, my computer's slow, Dennis, what should I do? I would say, hey, do the basics. Turn the thing off, just shut it down, wait a few seconds, start it up, let's see how she does. Don't open up anything, let's just see how it performs. Do something simple. Get on the internet, maybe open up a Word doc, just do simple things. If that stuff all seems to be doing okay, maybe it's all it needed was just a restart. Apple, I leave my computer on 24/7, however I do restart at least once a week. Unless I have to do something for an update, I have to shut down and restart. But normally once a week is all I do, and those things run. Mine runs constantly. If after that you're still having slowness and things just don't seem right, remember it can still be a hard drive, signs of failure down the road. And if not, the simple things to try right now, things that you can and may do, before you do these steps, maybe ask Jerry, George, me, or somebody just to be safe and do the right procedure. But you can delete all the cache items in the cache folders. There's 3 library folders. We have a user library folder, which Apple has hidden from us now. We have a system library and a library that's open to us at just before the root level. And there's 3 library folders on the computer. Each one has a cache folder. Each one has a log folder. You can delete the stuff in the folders. Do not delete the folders. I'll say it one more time. Do not delete the folders. You can delete what's in them, not the folders. Also, if you got to your user level, the preferences, Apple's got these lock preferences. Sometimes your printer gets stuck in printing out 2 pages instead of 1. You're like, I tell it to print 1, it keeps printing 2. Well, maybe a previous print job you did, you told it to print 2, now it can't get out of that. There's a lock preference for each item we have in the computer that goes at the user level. Things that say 0K usually have a lock next to them. What you can do is you can delete everything that has a 0K next to it. It'll say 0 kilobytes, and delete all that in the trash. That'll refresh all your apps. It's important to do that every so often. Also in the preferences folder is another folder called by host. Don't let me try to explain that to you, but it's kind of like it's like a current Rolodex for everything that's being used in the computer that you've actually are using. And every now and then you can dump everything in a by host folder, but you gotta leave that folder there as well. Now, everything I said you can do, you can delete all 3 cache folders, all 3 log files, and all those library folders. You can delete the 0K preferences, and we can delete everything in a by host folder. That's all important stuff to know. But do not empty the trash. Do not empty the trash. One more time. Do not empty the trash. Reason being is you got to shut the computer down, restart, then empty the trash. Because the stuff that you take out of the cache, the library and the logs and the preferences are still active. So if you delete them while the computer's running, it's going to just yell at you. So wait, shut the computer down. If you're not sure, you don't feel comfortable, call me. I can walk you through it, or I can come by and help you do it. But this is rare. We don't have to do this all that often, okay? Like I said, Apple rarely has things maintenance-wise. Just use your computer to enjoy it. If it starts slowing down, these are things to consider. But we'll talk about some other slowdowns. Because if you don't have enough memory, hard drive's getting full, computer's 6 years old, and you're hoping it lasts 6 more. You know, these are things that, Plus, remember, the biggest thing we do is, since we have these things so long, right? You start off with tiger, and we move up to lion, or leopard, snow leopard, then a lion, mountain lion, mavericks. If the computer's able to take it, that's great. But remember, think of it like a Ford Pinto. It's got a 4-cylinder car, it's just you. And all of a sudden you get this girl. So then you marry her. Just you two, go all over the country anywhere you want. Then all of a sudden, hey, you get this bright idea. I want a big boat. So you put the trailer, the boat on the back, the roof rack, all the luggage. You got 2 kids and a dog. That 4-cylinder car is now struggling. It still lasts 10 years, but it's not the peppy 4-cylinder it was when you first bought it. So things to keep in mind. Pretty sad, I know. But to check your hard drive's health, you can definitely just open the disk utility and verify the drive in the first data if you want to. And usually that comes back green. Can you get a false positive? Yes, I've had people's hard drives where it says the smart status is good, the hard drive checks out green, and clearly the hard drive was failing. So you can get a false positive. So to me, all computers are designed to fail from day one, including Apple. It's hard to say that, but in reality is, as long as you got a backup or even more than one backup of your stuff, that's really what we need to do. Got to have a backup. There are tools out there you can use. Onyx is one of them. You can use that to sometimes you got a print job that won't go away. It's stuck. It'll clear your print cache. It'll fix some internet cache files. Old fonts, logs, you can get rid of languages that are extra you're not using. If you guys aren't talking Portuguese, you can dump it from the system. Don't do it. I'll tell you why in a minute. But the big thing on the bottom is do not defrag your Mac. There's a lot of people that still think you should. Do not defrag your Mac. Windows computers need that. Apple computer doesn't. The reason why we defragged in the past was we had small hard drives. So in order to make room for it, things would get cluttered, moved around so much, it kind of takes everything out of the room and it puts everything back nice and neat. It's not needed anymore. The hard drives are way too big, and the biggest thing that people don't understand is the new SSD drives, these new solid-state drives that are now in the laptops and some of the Apples, the desktops. They use a trim method. It uses a mathematical Einstein algorithm to decide where data goes on these drives. And its goal is not to write over each sector more than 1,000 times, because once it gets to that 1,000 times thing, it may just quit working. So it has to constantly work on where your data is going to go. And I'll explain a little bit more about that later. But trying to defrag an SSD drive, you actually do more harm and wear and tear than good. So it's not needed. There are programs out there like Clean My Mac, Detox My Mac. Don't use them. They're not needed. But it's a nice gimmick because people are like, well, it says it can clean all my stuff. I'll just push that one button, control, and I'm happy. Usually I call that one button nightmare. That's usually what happens. I mean, you're always going to get something, full disk fighter. You got the other one from AVG, because AVG feels like, hey, we do everything for Windows, let's do something for Mac. And look at the bottom line. Get it for free. Well, that's just asking for trouble. One of the biggest things I tell people to worry about, they got a junk scanner. Well, how does it know something's junk? Maybe those are your wedding pictures. You want those, right? Wife will kill you, you dump those, George. Application scanner, it tells you how many apps you have, and do you really want dry photo? Well, yeah, what's one going to do with that? File finder, well, it's already built in the Spotlight. Duplicate finder is the worst thing in the world, because what happens is, most of us have a backup drive hooked up to the computer, or if not 2. If that thing says, yeah, I found 3 of this lecture I have today, and I say, well, I only need 1. Great, boom, I delete 2 of them. Well, unfortunately, I took the one off the main computer and one of the backups, and I didn't realize the third one's on some other backup drive, so when I go back to look for it later, now I can't find it. And then I find it in one location, but not where it's supposed to be. And I didn't realize I threw it away. And the problem is you get yourself into trouble. Language scanners, leave the languages in the computer. I know they're worried about, hey, I'm not using Japanese, Thai, Portuguese, whatever. When you do the updates from Apple, from software update, it does, especially like the bigger updates, 10.91, 10.92, whatever comes out next, they build on everything in the operating system. If it's missing system files, like languages, it may not go in properly, or just stop altogether. Just don't remove the languages, just leave them there. How many have seen a virus for Apple? No hands? Come on. All right. Are there viruses for Apple? No. A definition of a virus is something that can spread all by itself. So in the Apple world, no. Now, can you get a Trojan horse, or we call spyware, malware, that can actually break the computer itself or break a part of the computer itself? Yes, that's true. But that also depends upon where everybody goes, on the internet especially, or what software you got on your computer. I know a lot of people don't like to pay for certain things. Photoshop is expensive. Microsoft Office is expensive. You buy the full, one that has Outlook in it, it's $250. Then people will get pirated copies, and what happens is when somebody gives you that free copy or you paid something small for it, you also get a little something to go with it, and it's called the Trojan horse. And if you guys know that story, then usually there's a lot involved with that, especially messing up the computer, taking it over. And I will show you, there is one bug out there that you guys, some of you may even pay for the service. I'll come to that in a second. Let's see. If you're really concerned, no matter what I tell you today, read Thomas Reed's Mac Malware Guide. He kind of gives you a pretty thorough, in-depth detail about where Apple is today, if you really want to or not. If you still don't like what I have to tell you and feel like you need to have something, a lightweight anti-malware like Sophos Home Edition, ClamZav, or even Symantec's antivirus, if you want those. My opinion is don't install them, but that's just me. Also, remember, this also adds to that. I told you about those minimizing your experience. If you have one of each one on there, well, one does antivirus, the other one does malware and spyware. As 2 services running, they may collide somewhere in your system. They're running all the time. So when you're trying to update the Dropbox, do your Carbonite, time machine's running, got the mail open, and you're syncing with your iPad, and it freezes, it could be one of these idiots running in the background. It's not needed. Let's see. Like I said before, keep your Mac simple. If there's nothing you need, if you're not sure you want the software, don't install it. Because we have options. Everyone's looking for the free PDF this, the free Word that. There's a lot of free services out there. But eventually, free things don't get updated often. Paid apps do. So it's just, you get what you pay for. So in my opinion, antivirus isn't needed. Anti-spyware isn't needed right now if you know where you're surfing. The Mac and iOS do not have any viruses or known bugs in the wild that we have to worry about. And the Apple Store will tell you this, Apple Main will tell you this. What are you defending yourself against? I can go buy a really good version of Endpoint from Norton, put that on my laptop and really block out all kind of bugs. But since there's no bugs for Apple, what am I defending against? Now I got something running on my computer, behind the scenes, in full time, using up my processor and memory, but yet, am I going to bring the right gun to the gunfight? Because if there's no bugs out there, what am I killing? Now, the only thing it does come beneficial for is if, as an Apple user, you can be a carrier and a pusher, meaning that if someone who's a Windows computer sends you something that has a virus attached to it, it may not attack your computer, but if you forward it on to another friend of yours who's got Windows, you just pass the virus on. And for the most part, those programs could find that file and isolate it, but at the end of the day, that's very minimal, so I really wouldn't worry about that. And remember, software update, we're talking about whether you update or not. Well, if you have an antivirus on the machine, and it hasn't really been updated in a while because really there's no bugs out there for Apple, and all of a sudden tonight 10.9.2 comes out for Mavericks and you install it. All of a sudden now we'll just say Norton starts screaming, warning, warning, detected all kind of bad things. Now you're nervous because you've never seen that before. And it says, push here to quarantine. Oh yeah. Boom, you hit that button, all of a sudden now the computer doesn't really work because you quarantined healthy code. So that's the thing you got to be worried about. So try not to use those programs. Right now, Apple is still safe and is still winning. This is something you all need to be afraid of. I talked about a Trojan horse. How about one you can buy? This one right here is called Mac Keeper. It's in Macworld. You surf the internet at different sites. You're going to see this guy pop up everywhere. In fact, you can download a free copy of Adobe, and this sucker shows up in the computer. You'd be surprised. There's a lot of tricks to get itself installed to your machine, and most people don't even know they have it. One of my clients today, she had it on her husband's computer and didn't know it was there. Dr. Hutchings is one of our MUG members. Real nice guy. Known Dr. H for a long time. Poor guy, he calls me after the third time MacKeeper kicked in. What it did the first time was, it will hack your computer. I'll tell you what it does. It's going to report false info. The screen pops up, says, warning, we detected this, 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 and this. And conveniently next to it is an 800 number to call. Oh, how nice of them. And you call and they say, yes, we can fix that for you. Let me log right into your computer. And you go, sure, I want my stuff. They're in. That'll be $300. It's a low, low price. And you kind of go, wow, you guys are great. A month later, same thing happens. Now you're $600 out the door. What was wrong with this Mac? Nothing. MacKeeper, what it does is it says it monitors all these different parts of your computer, which is a bunch of BS. What it does is it creates a shadow profile of your account. So as you have an email, of course, in your username and password, log in and check the web, check your mail. You got things for the websites, you got things for Word. All of a sudden, you can't get on the internet. You can't get your email. You can't open up a Word document. Then this thing pops up. All they do is they go in, they basically have a hidden file. They remove it, which turns your account back on. And all of a sudden, hey, you guys are great. Here's $300. So it's an easy way to take people's money. There's other bugs out there. One of the ones you guys need to be sort of cautious of. The only other one that I saw was an issue is called Crypto Locker. That is out there. It will affect the Mac. It won't hurt the operating system, but if it gets on the computer through a PC, to explain, how many people have to run Windows on their Mac? Okay, a few of you? Okay. I run Parallels. I have Windows 7, Windows 8, I got XP, I got a few things running. If I say I am running Parallels, I'm running Windows XP. If I tell Parallels to share my documents folder, okay, on the Mac side with the Windows side, so all my stuff's kind of virtually together, I don't have to worry about going to two different separate documents folders. That's great until Crypto Locker gets on the Windows side and totally encrypts every single file it's connected to it. Well, unfortunately, because I opened up my documents folder on the Mac side, it'll encrypt all the files, which means when I go to open it, it's just going to be hieroglyphics. It'll open, but it'll say it's damaged, and when it does open it, it's all gibberish. That'll do it to all your Word docs, your spreadsheets. It may disrupt some of your pictures. It only gets the things that you tie to it, and it's usually a documents folder. So now I've dissociated that with my Parallels. But it's one of those things, and Crypto Locker is one of those viruses that's kind of a catch-22. If you got a Windows computer and you get it, you can spend $300. They tell you to go to Walgreens, get a cashier check, and mail it off to them. If you get it to them in time, believe it or not, I've had clients who've actually got the unlock key and saved their stuff. But unfortunately, it's one of those things that's easy to take out of the computer, but once it encrypts your stuff, we can't get it out without their passcode. And I have a lot of Windows people who've been in trouble because of that. Information roadways will eventually collapse. That means eventually our hard drives are going to give out because of all that crap right there. Everything you and I have is in the box. So, what are you guys supposed to do? Back up. There's many ways to do it. I mean, external hard drives work great. We have Time Machine, which doesn't get everything, and it's not always a friendly thing to use, but it does work. I'm a fan of Super Duper. I've seen countless clients with that feature. You do have some online things like Carbonite. Stay away from Mosey. They're another service. Carbonite at least does what they call a file integrity check. Once it leaves point A and arrives at point B, it checks the consistency to make sure the file is fine. Mozy doesn't do that. It just copies from A to B. We have no idea if it made it there one piece, and then later if you call it back, it might already be broken, which at that point, if it's for recovery, it might be too late. I mean, you can do things, most things are on a cloud. You have Dropbox, Box.com, iCloud's got some things, Google's got their drives. It's going to be endless. This is a whole new thing. You see out and around Naples, all the storage units going up and all the ones that are here. It's the same thing in the sky because they all know we need a place to put our stuff. And then they all promise you the same thing. Hey, no matter where you're at, Mac PC in Rome, in Jamaica here, you can access your data anytime. That's great to a point. A, it comes with a cost, okay? And B, you have to have a reliable internet connection to get to your stuff. And, you know, if your internet goes out and you have a virtual drive somewhere that's all your stuff on it, guess what? You're not getting your documents. So things to keep in mind. Plus, most companies like Carbonite, Mozy, and I know Dropbox and Box.com, they all have secondary sites off U.S. continent, which means it might be in Europe, it might be in the Philippines, it might be in Manila, you don't know where it's going to be. So how safe is all our data? Nobody actually really knows. They can say they encrypt it, but just remember, for every lock, there's a key and someone has access to it. So all it takes is one disgruntled employee. I mean, how many have had credit card fraud within the last 3 years? I'm sure a lot of us have.
Wow.
Okay. It's 1 and 2. So if it hasn't happened, it will. Okay, who has an iPad? Wow, that's awesome. I like them too. I'm going to just talk some basic things about the iPad, and I'll open it up for questions, and you guys can ask me whatever you want. But simple things about the iPad, it's like the laptop as well. Fully charge your device, unplug the sucker, and use it until the thing goes red. Okay? Just before it goes off. Most people don't. They use it for a while, and then you hurry up and charge it again. Use it for a while, and hurry up and charge it again. You have to exercise the batteries. They're made to run. Don't be afraid. Use it so they can stretch. Be mindful of storage capacity. You know, some buy 16 gigs, some buy 32, some buy the 64. And that's all well and good, but remember, you know, most people nowadays are trying to get away from the laptop. They're trying to do a little more on the road. They want all their stuff with them. Well, you know what happens with stuff? We don't have a big enough suitcase to put it in. So we end up getting all our pictures, all our music, all our movies. Oh, I got to have these 4 Angry Bird apps, and they all take up space. And the funny part is, I wish they would tell you how big the file was, because most people don't pay attention. They say, ooh, Angry Bird, new version, free, click, and it goes in the device and you start playing. But if it's a gig in size, well, after 16 gigs, after it's formatted and then you have a little bit of the operating system, you got about 9.5 gigs left. You put 2 Angry Bird apps in, now you're down to 7 gigs or 6 gigs. Add your photos and your music and maybe an audio book, and you go, crap, I can't do the next update because I only have 200 megabytes left on my device. Happens all the time. So try not to, if you're done with whatever's on the device, you can delete it. If you're using your device like an iPhone or an iPad with the camera to take pictures or video, offload it to the computer, Mac or PC. So that way, if you don't need it, take it off because you're going to want to have your space back. And unfortunately, you know, I don't know how big these apps are going to get. Pages is pretty big, Keynote's pretty big. They take up space on your device. And if you're not going to be, you know, some people go, hey, you know, it's free. So I got Pages, I got Keynote, I got Numbers. If you're not going to use it, take it off. You can always put it back anytime you want, but take it off. It doesn't have to be there. Most people don't know, you know, they have this delusion that the cloud gets everything. iCloud does not. In the old days of the old .Mac and Mobile Me, we had a disk. We actually could keep our files in. A lot of us miss it. We could have a website up there. I mean, I really miss the things Apple did in the past. But hopefully they'll come back to that someday, maybe. But unfortunately, since they opened up to the world with their computer stuff, they can't really accommodate everybody like they used to. So now we have basics. What the iCloud gets is minor stuff. It gets your contacts, your calendars, your bookmarks, get your notes, get your reminders. It can do some documents and things, but it's very limited. So, and then you can pay for space. You can say, okay, store my photos. You can turn PhotoStream on. But at the end of the day, that starts taking up space, and of course you start paying money for that. Most people don't back up to their computer because they assume iCloud gets everything. Well, there's been instances where I can tell you it's even happened to me. I had a brand new iPhone. I had it sitting in my car. Of course, OtterBox had not made the case just right for it just yet. I set it on my dashboard, I opened my door. It's magically come off the dash, hit my step side, smacked the concrete ground, and went zoom across the driveway. Of course, you know, I was tear crying the whole way. I hope it's okay. Pick it up, and I look at it, and I go, oh, shattered screen. Oh, it turns on. Cool. Put it back on my hip, took care of my client. And then he was right across the street from the Apple store, so I go ready to call my wife to tell her something. And while I'm trying to dial her number, she calls. But it wasn't her custom ringtone. I went, oh shit. And there's no name on there either. Like, hey honey, I gotta call you back, I got a problem with the phone. Hung up the phone, went over to the Apple store and went, wow. I said, I dropped it. The guys did me a favor, they just gave me a whole new phone because the face was just cracked when I had it a day. And things were good. Well, when I got home, I was driving home, I had no contacts. Remember, this thing was full. No contacts, no calendars, no ringtones, no nothing. It went back to default factory settings. So now, because this is what I do for a living, part of my friends, yo, shit factor hit me. On the way home, I'm going, huh. So if I don't have anything on my phone, did that push it to the cloud, therefore push it to my devices, and I don't have my stuff when I get home? So the office machines and all my stuff, all that stuff was gone. Now, the good thing is, I got a backup. I just restored the contacts, restored my calendars, bookmarks, and notes. That was easy. The downside was, wow, all I did was drop my phone. So if you don't have it somewhere else as a backup, then we're in trouble. And these things, like I said, for whatever moment in time, it was talking to the servers when it smacked the ground and pushed, I guess, somehow on a race feature, and everything decided to go with it. You know, I happen to be a lucky candidate for that. Just keep in mind, backup's important. So if you use iTunes for Mac or Windows, do a full computer backup. You know, when you turn on iTunes, you'll see your device in the menu, click on it, and you can say, it says backup to iCloud by default. Click where it says backup to computer and say, full backup now. It'll do it, and then when you're done, you can go back to the iCloud if you choose to. But you should always do that at least once a week. That way it gets everything. Also sync it with your iPhoto, Aperture, Picasa, Lightroom, whatever you use. You're going to want to transfer your pictures and videos out of the device as well. Remember, all these things take up space. You know, how many of us listen to audiobooks and forget they're still on there? They take up space. And audiobooks are pretty cool. Yeah, TV shows, movies. You know, my kids, they downloaded the whole series on my wife's phone for SpongeBob. I mean, it was kind of funny. It's like, I can't use my phone. So she's blaming the kids. I think those are hers. But all this stuff does take up space. As I tell everybody, these devices are not designed to store everything we have. They are not replacements for this stuff. They're kind of a peripheral that works with what we have. But everyone thinks we can replace it. How many know how to turn off their apps on their devices? How many have iOS 7? How many have iOS 6 or older? Okay. If you have iOS 6, you double tap the home button, which is the round button on your phone. Okay? And then when the bar comes up from the bottom, you'll see the row of applications. You push and hold on them until you see a little red dot show up. Looks like a do not enter sign. You tap on each red dot, and that shuts them off on the iOS 6 and older. On iOS 7, basically, you double tap on the home screen, and then you'll see all the different things here. We do from the bottom to the top, you slide it up to quit the apps. Slides up this way. That's how they quit. Most people don't know how to do that because nobody told them, and I wish Apple would do a little better job of explaining some simple features. And that way, you should turn off your apps as much as possible on the iPad and the iPhone because they take up the memory. And some apps don't put it back right away when they're done, so it's good to do it every so often. If you get stuck where the device runs slow, people think by shutting it down and restarting it will solve the problem. All those open apps will come back as an open app. You still have to go do what I did, double tap and close these things.
Okay.
And I will tell you, the best thing to do is, everyone likes things to look pretty, and you can't go wrong with them. Buy yourself a good case for your iPad or your iPhone. OtterBox, Defender makes some good cases. There's a bunch out there. LifeProof is nice waterproof-wise. They suck when you drop them. So it's kind of a catch-22. I've had a lot of luck with OtterBox. They're just not pretty looking, but they actually do the job. And I can tell you I've dropped them off ladders and things, and the phone's been just fine. So definitely a fan of a protective case. All right, time for questions. What do you guys got? Georgia.
I used to use Disk Warrior. I now have a solid state drive. Should I trash it?
Yeah.
Thanks.
You do not need TechTool Pro. You do not need Disk Warrior. You don't need any of those drive things. I mean, I do this for a living. I don't even use them on my own stuff. The only thing I use is when people have I do forensics work, so if someone has an issue where the drive's gone bad or something's failing, I have software that I use to go get the data. But honestly, if the drive's already in trouble, Disk Warrior things aren't really going to do you any good. And I just think it's kind of a misnomer. Okay.
If I'm your computer, is there any difference if you push restart or if you push shut down and wait for me to stop spinning and then push start? Is there any
When someone says perform a cold shutdown or cold restart, they mean shut it down, wait a few seconds, push the button again to restart.
I've never seen that.
What's that?
I've never seen that asked, by Apple or anything.
It's usually, most people, if you got a problem, they're saying pull the plug, or push and hold the power button until it shuts off, or just go up to the Apple and say restart. But I will tell you this, please go up to the Apple in the upper left-hand corner and click on it to restart and shut down your computer. I've got clients who actually just push and hold the button in, or they'll have a surge strip on the floor and they reach under with their foot and shut everything off that way. That's enough to kill your whole system. So be sure you always restart from the menu or shut down. But far to answer your question, I mean, it doesn't really matter.
Thank you.
You bet.
I'll say one thing. There are some capacitive things inside the power supply, and if you shut it down and wait 30 seconds, that will discharge. So there is a slight difference between a restart and shutdown.
There is, and that's why I always say cold shutdown or cold restarts. You actually shut down, and they say wait and then restart. Go ahead, sir.
This may sound funny, but I'm concerned about corrupted files in SuperDuper because it's constantly revising, and I've had it doing the same job for 2 years. I'm worried about something corrupted, but I'd be better off at some quiet moment cleaning it off and starting again with a fresh backup.
Here's one of the things I tell most people. SuperDuper isn't perfect, but what I like about SuperDuper, it gets your data. And to me, for data recovery purposes, I want data. If I can have stuff to pick from and make it right for you, then that's great. If I don't have anything to pick from, then it kind of sucks. I usually do more than one backup because I don't just trust one. I use SuperDuper, but I have it backing up to 2 different drives. In fact, I entered a 3rd drive into my equation. I use backup all files. I don't use the copy newer command. There's different things you can do. I usually say backup all files. And every night mine runs, and I mean, I'm grabbing data constantly. But every now and then, it is a good, healthy thing if you want. If you feel comfortable with your hard drive's fine, go ahead and reformat your external drive and reset up SuperDuper and let it run from that point. Because eventually, over time, like for me, my SuperDuper, when it backs up, I have stuff on the desktop, it runs 10 o'clock every night. So whatever I copied from my desktop and downloads folders are now on the desktop of my backups. And after a while, now I got a million things on the desktop. If I have to ever do a restore, I got to clean off a lot of stuff. So every now and then I police my own backups. I mean, it's just one of those things, but like I said, I'd rather have that hassle of removing junk that I have too much of than not have anything at all. Ed?
Oh, do you have any comments on the recent Apple go-to-fail security problem that's been hitting the press lately?
I didn't hear about that.
I've never heard of
iOS?
that.
The
Yeah. iOS and also on Macs, and particularly susceptible is Safari, and also now it's into Mail and other programs on the Apple.
Secure socket.
It came up in Forbes
Oh.
magazine. Yeah.
There's a lot of features built in. It's kind of hard to explain. Certain servers, depending upon what you're working with, a lot of people use free stuff. People use Yahoo, they use Gmail, they use MSN, Hotmail, Outlook.com. Some connect via secure socket layers, others don't. Some require a password and user name and login. I'm not sure what the rhyme or reason is why some services work and some don't. Apple is addressing some issues, and so are some of the big major carriers that I just mentioned. So it's kind of like one of those things we'll wait and see. Remember, the hackers out there right now are really trying to make our life. If I can shut down an iPhone, I can shut down Android devices. I'm making the whole country have a bad day. You know what I'm saying? So this is what these people are trying to do. Windows people go through it all the time, and it's it doesn't make it right, but it's a pain in the butt. As soon as Android, if you've got an Android device, one of them Samsung Galaxies, Android devices do have viruses in the wild. So iPhone's still immune. But people hack the operating system all the time. And it's not because they can, it's because they want to do it. They want to prove that, Apple's not as solid as everybody thinks it is. Well, and remember, it's all man-made. Anybody can hack anything they want. It's just, what they're going to do with that knowledge. The last guy who did hack Apple's operating system got a job from Apple. But he quit after a year because Apple kind of hit him in a room and didn't really give him anything challenging. Which he said, I would have gave this guy something good to do, maybe build a better smart device that was more secure, but it didn't make use of his talents. I'll come back to you on that question. Let me look it up and see if I can send something to Jerry for everybody. I'll do more research on that for you.
Battery backup, how often do you replace it?
Battery backups are good for every 1.5 to 2 years, depending upon, well, the problem with that is you can not, Batteries Plus is in Naples. They have one in Fort Myers near Pagefield too. They replace the batteries and they're pretty cheap. They're much cheaper than buying a whole new unit.
Is there any way to, with the APCs, you never know if the battery's good or not?
No, I say if you've had it more than a year, you're not sure, you can go have it checked or just replace the battery. One of the things too is, remember, these things are deployed 24/7. You can be sleeping, it'd be a nice calm night outside and have some transient FPL attack, beat your device up and not know it.
Okay.
A lot of these things have stepper filters built in them or little things that pop before the big thing pops. Sometimes you can have the device take 2 hits, then the 3rd hit is the charm, but didn't know you've already taken 2. There's just no way of knowing. Usually, a lot of the ones I'm talking about with the EVR have an LCD screen. They usually tell you your battery life is, in a bunch of bars. As it starts decreasing, then you'll know. Plus, it'll beep. Most of them tell you if you have electrical problems in the house. They're actually pretty intelligent. We'll get back there. Go ahead.
Dennis, Kathy.
Hey, Ken.
Talked about backing up Super Duper and Time Machine. Then what happens when you go to find is that you have to look for something. You have so many copies of it.
Yeah, that's a hard issue because Spotlight's designed to search everything. So what you can do is when that window comes up, I just say Show in Finder, and then I specifically click this Macintosh or this specific hard drive. You have to tell it which one. And it's there up in the list, you just have to click on it. But that's the other problem. And the other thing that slows your computer down, especially for me, I told you, I got 3 backups running, okay? And my iPhoto library stuff and my Aperture library are on my Drobo device. The problem with that is, every now and then I'll click on to open up a file, and it wants to check all the available applications to open whatever file it is. Well, it's checking my Apple drive, it's checking the other hard drives, and I get a spinning beach ball going. Could this be any simpler? But, with having protection are some growing pains that go with it. The new computers are actually working faster, but, mine's older, and it really gets mad at me when it's looking for something.
It does. On the iPad backup, can you back up the entire so-called hard drive on the iPad like you can with Super Duper?
Yes and no. Normally, what happens is when you do a full backup to the computer, it gets all the apps that you had on there in the places that they were. It'll get your music, your photos. Oh, not the photos, but the photos will go through iPhoto. But it remembers your voicemail, remembers your text messages. It gets a lot of those things. But it does not get some applications that we are using nowadays. Some of these applications, like a genealogy program, example of Reunion, which you guys have heard of on a Mac, if they make it for the iPad, which they may, I don't know, but if it has a local stored database, that is stored within the application or somewhere else on a device, that may not come over with the backup. And I've had people, I had one lady, she used some kind of journal daily diary program she used for 2 years and then dropped her iPad, had to get a new one. They went and transferred the app and stuff over, but it never got her database, and the company said there's just really no way to get it out of there. They didn't give her a way to, email it to yourself, or, can you add it to some of these will allow iCloud transfers. It's up to the manufacturer and it's up to Apple to give them a blessing or not whether to do that. So I usually don't put too much, anything important in my iPhone or iPad for the fear that, I may not be able to get it out. Okay.
Your clients with old Mac Pros, when they buy a new one, how do you replicate the 3 additional drives that they had in the Mac Pro?
That makes it hard. Yeah, I've not had to do that for anybody. You mean like one for the operating system and the rest for storage?
Yeah.
Well, what happens is I've actually gone down everything. I did that once in a recording studio. I went everything back down to one drive. I basically just migrated. I transferred the operating system over and all its files, and then whatever's on the other drive, I just migrated it in. I just created another, got the enclosures for FireWire and USB, took the drives out, stuck them in the enclosures, and treated them as an external hard drive. It's the easiest thing you can do.
Could you explain Drobo? Is that a
Drobo is an all-one device, and what I like about Drobo, it's like a little black box, got a bunch of little blinky lights on it, and it's got a front magnetic shield. And what this thing does is, you all know what a hard drive looks like, right? An external hard drive, like, for backup. Western Digital, Seagate, let's see, you guys all seen those. This is just a little bit bigger, it's like a little cube. But what Drobo does, it uses something called Beyond RAID. The way RAID technology stores your data, it puts ones and zeros in different locations, and hopefully when something crashes, you can get all your data back. The problem with RAID itself is if I take a hard drive out, if there's 3 or 4 in an array and I take them out, move them around, it doesn't like that, and then you can never get your data back. Drobo allows you to use any, and they have to be same size hard drives, same manufacturer. Drobo allows me to put that in any size hard drive, any manufacturer's brand, whether it's Western Digital, Seagate, put them all in this one device, and you can partition it to be, for Time Machine and for Super Duper, or just keep it as one big volume, it doesn't matter. It constantly grows with you, and it monitors the hard drive. If a hard drive starts to fail, it'll say, Bay 3 is failing, go buy a new drive. It'll light up yellow. If the drive just dies, you never lose your stuff. Drobo moves your stuff all over that whole array that you never lose your data. You can have it set up to do double redundancy. 2 hard drives can fill at the same exact time and never lose your data and still be working from the device. And it's easy to replace. You just go over to Best Buy, buy a hard drive, come home, push the button, push one out, push one in, and walk away. There's no calling Dennis, there's no getting Apple Genius involved. It's that simple. It does work. It's one of the better devices on the market as far as keeping our data safe. Is it the best? 100% no, because there really isn't one. But because we all have this data now, we all have a lot of pictures and videos and music, we need a place to put this stuff, and that actually works well. What I like about Drobo, A, it polices the drive, it's constantly checking itself. B, I won't lose my data. C, the new ones now have these new battery capacitors. Remember I mentioned about yanking the power and losing all our stuff? Well, if the power goes off on the Drobo, it's now got a voltage capacitor that sits inside it and says, okay, I'll write the new table of contents and hierarchy, then it shuts itself down safely. So you won't get a dirty shutdown issue, which would definitely save Muffy. That feature just came out now in the last year, but it wasn't available on hers or my units. I'm sure it's the same for you. Yeah. So it's one of those things. But Drobo does work really well. Go to drobo.com, look at the devices, they're pretty cool. They're a little pricey because they come empty. So you have to buy some hard drives and stick them in there. But they work really well. Okay.
On my iPhone, it's driving me crazy punching that passcode all the time. Code. Is there any way to make it sort of live a little longer?
Apple's designed it to ask for the code all the time now. That's their policy. They changed it. I agree with you too. It's a pain in the butt, but now they ask all the time.
But the time you can set, can't you? How long after?
No, it's at random. It's whatever their servers kick out. If you can actually do two or three back to back, but if a few minutes go by, they may ask you to do it again. It depends. Depends on the server. It's a rolling security thing. They're just trying to keep people from hacking the system. Yeah.
How do you charge for your services?
Normally I'm $110 an hour, but for the MUG members it's $95 for their first hour, and from there 2 hours to $65 an hour thereafter. So 2 hours. I come to your house, I come to you. Because 9 times out of 10, the problems are at the house or at the business. They're not, because, stopping by and seeing me is not going to fix an internet problem you got at the house, so I come see you and make sure everything's safe. But, before I see you, I tell you, make a big list, get all your questions you want, and we get you covered.
How about we call you on the phone?
I don't charge for phone. Yeah, I don't. I'm actually a nice guy, so. Good.
I have a lot of important things on an app on my iPad,
Mm-hmm.
and I just assumed that they would all be backed up. Now, after what you just said,
Well, that's just it. Everybody's had that same
how would you
thing.
suggest I back it all up?
Okay, you can use iTunes to start, and that'll get a backup of what's on it for the most things. Then if you got pictures and videos, use iPhoto or Aperture, or if some people use Lightroom, some use Picasa.
Well, how would I do it on iTunes?
iTunes, you actually plug in the cable, the cable, depending on which model you have. And once you open up iTunes, it'll show up in a list where it says music, videos. You'll see your iPad or iPhone. Click on that, and then the screen comes up, and you'll see a thing in the bottom where it says sync. But in the center of that screen, it's going to say backup default says iCloud. You can click where it says backup to computer. It'll say this will do a full backup to the computer. You just say apply and sync, and it'll actually do a full backup to your machine.
But that assumes she has both an iPhone and a computer and a...
Yeah, well, you have to have a computer to do it.
Yes.
Otherwise, you cannot.
You have to use the cable only up to the key.
You can you can use the cable, which I recommend, but you can also do it over Wi-Fi. So anytime that you got to use the cable to set it up for the first time, you can say enable this to do it over syncing over Wi-Fi. So that way, once you check that box after you do the cable sync, Next time you open up iTunes, if your iPad's on the network, it'll copy the data right into iTunes without having to have a wire connected. That does work.
PC the same?
PC's the same. But for PC, you have to use the Windows has the boxes say about migrating pictures into the pictures folder, unless you're using some other program like Lightroom, because iTunes will not get your pictures. Go ahead.
So, you mentioned about not using Clean My Mac.
Right.
But doesn't that come loaded on the computer already? No?
No.
Because I noticed when I plug my iPod in, it always pops up Clean My Mac. And I thought that, I don't.
No,
think-
somehow they got on your device, but that's not standard issue from Apple. Apple doesn't give you anything except a disk utility, because that's really all you need. Repairing permissions is the biggest thing. How many repair their permissions? Okay. Do you guys know when to do it? Okay. Right before you install a new program, right before you install an update, you should run it, or you open up disk utility, you see your Macintosh hard drive, you click on it and say repair disk permissions. I don't care what the thing says, as long as it gets to the bottom and says repair complete, close it, install your update or whatever it takes, and then if the computer restarts or if it doesn't have to, go back and run the repair permissions one more time. All it's doing is making sure the foundation's kind of set and clean with all the commands that Unix uses, and then from there, it goes back after you install that, whatever you install, to make sure it's actually okay. It's real simple.
And I want to say that the kids on the floor at the Apple store don't know this kind of stuff. They have repeatedly said to me, oh, you don't need to repair permissions. But he says repair permissions, he says repair permissions. Believe these guys, because there's a technical difference in terms of knowledge between the sweet people on the floor at the Apple store versus the guys behind the Genius Bar. I get lots of bad information on the floor sometimes, like naming your computer or repairing permissions. But if you talk to a manager or anybody at the Genius Bar, they'll tell you something different.
It's one of those things too, it's a knowledge thing. They have a lot of employees there, and Apple just keeps hiring people. A lot of them are Windows converts, new to Apple. Mavericks is their first operating system. Some come in at Lion or Mountain Lion. So when you walk in and say, hey, I got Quick in 2006, and will that run on Mavericks? And they go, what's Quick in 2006? They have no idea. And they can't tell you yes or no, or what you need to do to get an older database updated along the way to get it to run where you need it to work on your computer. So the good thing for me is I use all computers, I use all software. I got businesses, I got dentist offices, I got law firms, they have proprietary stuff. So I get to see a lot of it, and usually I get to see it at its worst. And I got to figure it out and make it run. So for me, I'm fortunate that I started young and then learned the stuff and got along my way. My whole goal with electronics is never to be beaten by it. So far I'm winning, but every now and then I do get some mean curveballs. I can tell you that. Yes. Muffy and Georgia even had a curveball too. Go ahead, sir.
Dennis, you had mentioned before that Diamond Plus is the place to go.
Yes, sir.
So you don't think they would 10% discount the battery?
They do?
They do.
Very good. I love Batteries Plus. I mean, if they don't have a battery, you can't get it. I mean, those guys usually have everything. If not, they can custom make them.
Now it's called batteries and bulbs.
Batteries and bulbs. Yep. Go ahead.
Dennis, did you say on your laptops to also run down the
Yes.
batteries?
The problem with most people is they don't want to buy a desktop because they always want that possible having portability factor. I can tell you most of my clients who have a laptop have it sit just like I have it here. It's on their desk, it's plugged in with a dock and all their crap, and the cable's plugged in. I always walk in and go, when's the last time you unplugged it? Oh, I don't have to do that. I said, well, I tell you what, the moment you get on an airplane and try to turn this thing on in 5 minutes, it's going to... You don't know, the battery's 100%. No, it's not 100% of 5 minutes, not 5 hours. So, and that's one thing that you have to drain it. Eventually you'll have to replace the battery, but I'd rather you use it and beat the crap out of it and enjoy it. Otherwise, it's $160 to $180 repair, which nobody wants to do.
How often?
How often? It depends upon how much you use your computer, but normally I usually run, anytime I use a laptop, I drain them down. And for me, and what I do normally, these things sit in my bag in the car, or if I have a couple at the house, I just let them drain down so they, I hit the side button, it tells me how much power is left, and then I plug it in. Usually sometimes they go dead. That's okay, as long as they gotta get charged and then you gotta get drained as well. Go ahead.
Yeah, occasionally when I open my computer, if I close it and then I open it, I get a black screen, and the computer is not really turned off.
Yes, there's a phenomenon with Macs and PCs with sleep and hibernation if you're a PC, but sleep is a known problem with Apple computers since they've ever installed sleep on the computer. The computers are not made to go to sleep. Think of it like this. Jerry's listening to me talk. He's like, boy, now I'm just really thinking about closing my eyes. Jerry starts doing this. He's nodding off. If he nods off, I go, Jerry's going to go, what? He just kind of took a quick nod off nap. That's kind of like sleep's supposed to be. It's supposed to be that way. But what happens is Jerry falls into a deep sleep, and all of a sudden tomorrow morning he wakes up and goes, where the hell is everybody? Well, that's what happens with your computer. It won't come back on because it thinks it's off. But in actuality, it's on, but the screen won't wake up. So since the screen won't wake up, you kind of go, well, I can hear it, but hitting every button, clicking a mouse won't do anything. At that point, you got to push and hold the power button until the whole thing shuts down, and that's actually 8 to 10 seconds, not just a quick push and let go, because actually a quick push and let go usually makes it go to sleep. So you got to wait until you hear it go click, and then turn it back on. But the new computers don't make that sound because they have SSD drives, so a lot of the laptops, so you're not going to hear the click.
And they don't have they don't have a light that goes on and off.
No, they don't. Apple's got this infinite wisdom with lights, like especially when you have one of those wireless keyboards. People go, I've replaced the batteries, the thing doesn't work. First they hide the power button, which is pretty creative. So then after you push it, people go, well, how do I know it's on? They got to barely, if you look quick enough, you can see the green flash. Otherwise, you're looking there going, I don't know if it works.
It's like sunset.
As much as I love Apple, there's some simple idiot things I like, and I like that idiot like, but I don't get that. So, good, Mitch.
Yeah, Dennis. I gotta say, I've had Dennis over my house working on Drobo and a few other things, and he is an expert, and I can attest to that. But one day I had a question the other day on iPad. Somebody said they read that when you do the hard reset, holding the off button and the home button at the same time till the screen turns black and the Apple comes on, they said they read, don't do that very often because it can hurt the device. And I usually do that once a week or so.
It doesn't hurt the device, but there can be a glitch, which I've heard. I haven't seen it, but they said if you do that every now and then, there's a possibility of erasing and resetting the whole device. So you turn it back on and be like, oh crap, where's my stuff? So, but I do that too because I got people get stuck, and that's the common way to reset things. So, good.
Dennis, yeah, most of our members know that we donate. They wonder where their dues are going. We make donations to Hodges and the library and all that. There's a project that Dennis is involved in, rewiring this room. Can you explain to the group what all is planned for?
Well, yeah, that's no problem. They're putting a new. I think is that the new projector and stuff? No, okay. There's a new projector in the back. In order for people to have a better experience with the new connections and laptops, we're actually rewiring this thing. The VGA connection for like what I'm using will still be here with a new projector, which actually display much nicer and take full advantage of our new computer's capabilities. We're also going to have an HDMI connection, and people will be able to just do it wirelessly, because there should be a wireless transmitter in the back as well. So it's going to be not just beneficial to all the Mac members, it'll be beneficial to those users this room as well. And I do have a company that I work with electrical-wise, ETA Electric, and they're going to do the wiring, get things running, and they've made a good deal with it.
What difference would it, if we had that new system, what difference would it have made to your presentation tonight?
Oh, well, it'd be a higher def picture, which you'd see, notice. It'd be much sharper and clearer, but also wireless too. I could actually even broadcast wirelessly up on the screen. So, yeah, eliminate the wires as much as we can. But just so you guys know, as much as I can't stand wires, we're always going to have wires. It's the hardest thing. I mean, but for every wireless thing we have has more wires connected to it somewhere else.
With the new solid state drive, does it matter whether you turn the computer off at night or not?
No, the old school thought years ago, because of screen burn-in, okay, that's why we turned the computers off. A lot of people just left the computer running and just turned the monitor off. Solid state drives, let me tell you a little bit about those suckers. They are here to stay. I am not a fan for many reasons. They offer 2 pluses and everything else is a minus. I know it doesn't sound a lot coming out of me. The pluses are, yes, you gain more battery life on your device. Like the new computers get an extra 2 hours compared to a conventional rotational platter hard drive. And it's easy on and easy off for starting and doing things. Now, if the operating system is on a drive, it can handle running an operating system just fine because most data isn't moving around a drive. It's kind of stationary, okay, if you look at it that way. But here's some of the negatives. If you use iPhoto, use iMovie, use Lightroom, use Cinema 4D, you start doing some rendering, That, told you about that Einstein mathematical equation called trim? That little dude's traffic cop going, okay, can't write there yet, gotta write a little bit over there, a little bit over here, a little bit over there. Shh, okay, we're here, over here, over here, over here. And all of a sudden you go, what is this thing taking so long? But it opens up and closes really fast, but using Photoshop runs dog slow. It's not designed for mass use and because it has to move data around. Where rotational hard drives have many different read and write heads and spinning platters that it can do things all at one time. This thing doesn't work that way. So Apple's doing something different on the iMacs and probably the Mac Pro, fusion drives, where you can have a solid-state hard drive holds the operating system while the rotational drive does all the reading and writing of your random data of iPhotos and music and movies and things. So that makes more sense. I'm actually okay with the fusion drive. But as far as SSD, look at forensics. If the hard drive fails and the head doesn't scratch the platter, it's like a needle on a record. If the needle breaks, I can't play the record, but the record's still there. On data recovery, those platters can come out and go into a light drive, your data comes back. I'm able to use electron microscope, believe it or not, to get data off a hard drive. So there's a lot of data recovery services around the country that can do these things for you. The problem with the SSD drives are, it's like a flash memory stick. A little bit of too much electricity, pop, everything's gone. How do I get the data back? Plus, Hitachi, Toshiba, and a few other companies are making these drives, and because it's generational, this is first gen, second gen, third gen, the forensic equipment is very expensive. The ones that I'm looking at are 12 grand a piece, and they only take so many different drives. Well, the problem is they're not future-proof, so it doesn't mean that if I buy this device to hopefully get some of your data back, the drive that's in your new device may not work in this box because of the trim method or the algorithm it uses. It kind of sucks. So to me, yeah, you get, it definitely runs cooler because you can keep it on your lap now. Hence, they don't call them laptops anymore, they call them notebooks because laptops meant they could sit on your lap. Kid you not, if people were getting burned from the heat, so they said, oh, call them notebooks now, they're not laptops. Kid you not, some lawsuit somewhere. But at the end of the day, yeah, attorneys. I love Georgia. But at the end of the day, SSDs, they're just not ready for prime time. They are very expensive and they're limited on capacity. Remember, here we are, we went, 40 megabyte hard drive, 81 gig, 2 gig. We're at 250 gigs for a while, 500 gigs, now we're terabytes. They're pushing 6 terabyte drives now. That's awesome. Because we have all this crap. Remember, everything you and I do is in this stupid box, right? When we die, they gotta bury that with us because all our stuff's in it. Do you see the kids fight over it? No, I want the pictures, I want the pictures. What's the password? I don't know. Trash can. So, yeah, I do stand up too, pretty sad. 10,000 comedians out of a job and I want to be one.